This is a very special edition of Freudian Slips.
I know this is new for us. We're not normally this serious. This is more of a. I like that we're kind of folding these ones in.
Yeah, because I think this is really,
This
really
is the
important.
direction we want to go.
Yeah. All right, so let's see how it lands. Cool. All right, so hi, Ollie.
Hi, Danny.
And hi, everyone. This is Freudian Slips. This is the place where we get to talk about the shrinks, kinks, and things of the mental health field. And today, I think we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting.
Yeah. So Danny and I, upon starting this podcast, have talked about that over time we definitely want to weave in just like current event type topics that as they're happening, it's like, oh wow, well, like we're therapists. What are our takes on this? Or just from a mental health perspective, how do we feel about things? And today's going to be our first one of those because I found out Liver King got arrested yesterday. And Danny did not know who this was.
First time I'm hearing about this.
I only know who this is because I've had friends who are in like the bodybuilding like kind of world for a long time, and just, you know, he's a character if you know of him. And so for years I knew he was the guy that like sold these organ supplements, and we'll get into more about like kind of who he is, what we like know about him. So I've heard of him, the whole like steroid scandal where this man looks very ripped, very jacked, and really said it was because he was living this lifestyle that is called the like by the 9 ancestral tenets, and one of which is like eating raw organ meats, and that was what he attributed a lot of his aesthetics to. We find out he was indeed taking steroids. That all came to light. There was a Netflix documentary, which I found fascinating, that I watched a few months ago with my husband. And then last night saw these videos of him deciding he wants to like fight Joe Rogan. He's been posting a lot about this, and like goes to Austin, gets arrested on his journey to go to fight Joe Rogan. I immediately text Danny this morning and is like, we should talk about this. You want to talk about things from a mental health perspective as they are happening. Oh my gosh, this guy. And so Danny did so much research this morning, and I appreciate you so much.
I got you.
So this one's going to be a little bit more serious for us. I don't think we're used to talking about something that I know we both want to be really like respectful of, and I think he's kind of become this like character or like caricature almost, like in the fitness industry or even like lifestyle industry. I don't know what you would call it, but like I see a person and a family that's going through a lot, and it like I don't know why watching that, and we'll get into all this, but watching that documentary like really, really affected me. So Danny, what do we know about?
Yeah, so what we know, and this is coming from, a little bit of the research that I did before starting the episode, then also as soon as you told me, I turned on the documentary and I watched it. And so this is, coming from a combination of a couple things. This is kind of what we understand about Liver King, and that is his story kind of starts with his kids growing up kind of being unhealthy. So he mentions a few trips to the hospital, frequent trips to the hospital. And that moves him like any caring parent would, I think, to try and find a solution to, what's going on with my kids. How can I take care of them? I can, relate to, resonate with. I think no one's going to crucify him for that. He ends up stumbling on an ancestral diet, or I think it's more just appropriately or commonly understood as like the carnivore diet. So that is like a lot of raw meat products. This evolves into him building a kind of supplement business. From that, he sees a lot of good results. His kids are reportedly very healthy and fine. And so he's like, let me take this to the next level. Let me kind of spread this information to everyone else. He has a supplement business. It gets picked up by a marketing team, and they begin to build a brand around that. And so that's where his social media starts to really kind of pick up. We later find out that he was, in fact, using steroids, which before this, he had been very public about not using steroids. And so this was like a big thing, obviously. We find out that he was using steroids, and this is where we get the prequel chapter of his life, where we find out, oh, wait, there's this other thing. And you find out that he was struggling with some self-esteem and like body image issues growing up. And so that kind of adds to this whole, how he got here. Obviously, because of the loss and trust in his brand, things kind of take a break. And once he comes as clean as he can, he starts to move into this more like spiritual, holistic self-care aspect of health. And now he's being arrested for threatening Joe Rogan. That is pretty wild to me. And so that is what we seem to know. I'm trying to eliminate as many opinions and judgment from that as possible. That's just kind of how we got here. And as we kind of continue on, we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're going to be bringing this up. And obviously we are a mental health platform. And so we are going to be talking potentially about like some diagnoses and whatever. We are not diagnosing this person. I want to make that very, very clear. We are not speculating. We are not trying to, spread any rumors. We're not trying to figure this guy out. I hope that you guys can see that we're actually going to be moving in a very different direction by the end of the episode. But just kind of wanted to put that very respective caveat. If that's what you're, hoping to hear, then this probably isn't going to be the episode for you, because we really don't want to be participating in some of the speak that's going on about him. That's what we know. Ollie, what are your thoughts when this kind of came to your attention?
So, well, first, Danny, I want to make sure people know too that I am like, when I brought this to your attention, and I know when we've talked about like us talking about current event type topics, yeah, this is by no means to like slander someone or be like, this is obviously the diagnosis this guy has. Like, me and Danny do not know him. We know like this like media-sized, is that a word? Like version of who it is today, of who this guy is. And to me, these kind of conversations, I mean, I like listening to things like this from other types of professionals, because it's like when two doctors sit around a table or like at their lunch break, like a topic comes up. It's like, from two doctors' perspective, what does like just the table kind or like lunchtime chat about that topic sound like that might be different than me, who's not a doctor, talking about that or thoughts I've had on it. And so that's how I view these kinds of conversations, is like, this is how Danny and I interact about things normally. Or we'll be like, oh, did you hear about this? And it's like, oh, I really, it makes me wonder, like blah, 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 blah. And so it's like, I view this as more like you and me having our like lunchtime chat that we're just so happening. Oh, my words today are bad. But we just so happen to be like putting it in podcast form. But it's like, this is just how Danny and I talk about topics, really. And so I just think it'd be fun from a perspective of, we're two therapists who hear about what's going on in the world, and like what are maybe views or angles we're looking at it from that maybe other people didn't quite consider. Or maybe it's like, oh, that's a good point, I didn't quite think of it that way. And so yeah, this is by no means, and also these facts, like I think I heard that he the actual arrest was maybe not for like threatening Joe Rogan, but it was like one of those like mental health kind of holds. Yeah. And so it's like, we don't know. Danny and I are not by any means being like, we have all the facts and we're experts on this. Like, we're not. It's just two people like everyone else in the world seeing this information. We're just saying our takes on it. So sorry, Danny. With that being said, I didn't know much about him or didn't really dig more into him until I think the whole thing came out where he was taking steroids. And again, as someone who has not taken steroids, I have not been a bodybuilder. But I will say, when I saw him as someone not in that world, I was like, I know people in that world. I don't know how people's abdomens look like that unless you've taken steroids. And so I did find it like interesting that he lied about that or hid that for as long as he did. And I think it was through watching the documentary that I found it very fascinating. Like, it was one of the first times I watched a documentary on someone that obviously, they consent to the documentary being made. I think normally it's to like clear things up, or it's to be like, okay, I see why from their perspective they tried to pitch it this way, but like, I still believe what I believe. But this one I left, like, we turned it off. And I think I truly, like, my face was like, oh. Like I think he thought this would help.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think this helps. Like, this just makes me have so many more questions. Like the family system. I know Danny and I were talking before this. I am so fascinated by this family system, by how these boys feel growing up in this family, by the wife's perspective, by like, it's just so extreme of a lifestyle. And so these 9 tenets, by the way, that he lives by are sleep, eat, move, shield, connect, cold, sun, fight, and bond. And like, I think in many different professions and from what I've read from different cultures, a lot of this makes a ton of sense, like bonding with your community, cold and sun exposure. There's been a ton of research on, I feel like, especially lately, about like how great those can be for us. And obviously, like within reason and blah 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 and all the prefaces. Danny and I are not doctors, but these are all things that I sleep research, like, oh my gosh. And so I think the really controversial pieces are like about how he eats. In general, I think these are all great, but I think we're seeing a depiction of it in such an extreme that it's like kind of scary to watch and to put, see, and this is where I don't want this to come, see, this is my therapist in me, because in my head I'm like, to put your family through, but it's like they are consenting individuals that are choosing to do this. But I don't know how true that might be for his sons, or granted maybe, or his wife. But it's just interesting to see people operate this way. And then again, make me wonder, like, do I just feel that way because it's like looking at someone from a different culture where you're like, well, it seems wild to me, but is that a biased
Yeah.
judgment? And so I just have so many emotions as I was watching this documentary and seeing more just like how he responds to things, or like the questions people would ask and how he seems to talk about himself. And we can get into different, again, maybe not like diagnosing him, but just different characteristics that we noticed that relate to certain umbrellas of diagnoses. But that part really stood out to me. How about you?
I agree. It was actually pretty weird. This is the first time in like that I can actually, it was almost like an out of body experience now that I'm thinking about watching it this morning. Like, this is the first time I've actually sat in front of my couch and just like, what is going on? Right? I love documentaries and I find them, I think they're fascinating. And so I don't mind like laying on the couch and just like soaking it in. I have them playing on the background while I'm kind of like washing dishes or, doing chores. But this is one where like I sat down, saw something, and would just notice like 20 minutes went by, and I was like literally just sitting upright watching it. So definitely very interesting viewing, and like to your point, it does feel like there's a disconnection to reality. I like what you just brought up about maybe there is a bias, because like, yeah, maybe their lifestyle is very different than ours, and so maybe they know something that I don't, and so thank you for that kind of check. But when I was like watching it, it's like this person seems to kind of like understand themselves, and it's not rooted in like reality. It's not to say that they're wrong. It's just was like, where are you getting this kind of like this confidence from? Like, where this seems really odd. And then yeah, like a lot of the things that were coming out in the documentary as he's being interviewed, I do get the feeling that in his mind this was kind of like setting the record straight, telling my side of the story. And it was just like, that is like what you're kind of signing off on. Like, that's not, that's a little concerning. Are you not?
It still doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, right? And I think there was the messaging of like, this is how my family lives. This is so good for us. But then I just noticed little, and see, again, this is me like really picking apart like a document. Like, I'm not saying I know all these things, but just from what I saw in this documentary, I see the boys in their rooms a lot. Or when he goes to get them, they're like very kind of isolated, doing their own things. And and granted, it's like the boys are young. And again, I don't know, I'm not a workout professional. I'm not a biologist. Like, I don't know. I'm not someone who specializes in physiology. But like, for the boys working out as much as they seem to and living this lifestyle, and again, they're much younger, I'm aware. Like, they look nothing like the dad's body build. And again, it's like, I get it. There's all this years and years and muscle building. I get it. But I'm just saying, it's like, I see things like that. I see things like and again, Danny and I talked about this beforehand. I don't mean to bring in his family at all to say anything like rude or make judgments about them whatsoever. Again, I'm not a dermatologist. I don't know anything about skin health. And I'm just saying, if someone's going to pitch me this lifestyle of, like you said, in this documentary, it's just like this confidence. It feels like a blind confidence. It's like, some people in the film, their skin still looked, I don't know if I would consider that the absolute most healthiest version of what someone's skin maybe could look like, or certain people's hair looked really, really thin. And again, that could be nothing related to this diet whatsoever. I am just saying, if you're going to try to pitch me that like this is the lifestyle everyone should live, it's the healthiest thing possible, I want you to look and breathe and embody what I would consider to be like the epitome of perfection, the way this guy is selling it. And it did not come across to me that way and every member of the family. Same thing with just like how much other people seem to be involved and loving it. And it like, I literally was like, if you could put each person alone in like a family therapy session, like I would just want to know what people's unsolicited opinions might be on what's happening here. And so I think watching the family dynamic and like how people sat and their body language, where they were when he would like call the boys to do things, I just found it very interesting. A lot of it felt very like isolated and kept to themselves. And again, like, can people not be introverts? Like, yes, obviously, like really nitpicking this, but it just something felt off.
Yeah, this is where it's like it's all being televised. So what the hell? You know, that has to contribute to something. At best, it seems like his family was supportive of what he was
Yeah.
doing, but it didn't seem as if they like had drunk the Kool-Aid themselves. It didn't seem like they were as engaged with it. There was a few scenes where like they had killed an animal. They could harvest its organs, and it's like they, from what you see in the documentary, they seem to be just eating it straight out of the animal. And it's like he's very enthusiastic about it, and his family like partakes in it. But even he was like, "Who's ready for the next one?" They're like, "Nah, I'm good," you know. And so at most, they seem like supportive of his lifestyle. Best case scenario, they seem like supportive, like, "Hey, this is what my dad does. We love my dad. We're here for my dad. Also, there's cameras all over the place, so it's not like we're gonna argue with my dad." He did talk about, you know, a few times where CPS was called and how now apparently he has a good relationship with the reporter because they according to them, nothing bad is happening to the kids. So it's like it seems supportive, but it also, there does seem to be this odd like disconnect. I don't know how much of that is because it's being televised, that it's just weird to be on camera all the time, or how
Yeah.
much is that just like almost a mirror into the reality that we are on different pages, but it's kind of hard to really kind of put change when the head of the household is the one kind of doing all these things. It was, I think, uncomfortable to watch is kind of like an overstep, but it moved from entertainment to a more kind of like pointed curiosity pretty quickly for me.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get into, because at this point, I have not brought this up to Danny. I watched this documentary and I'm just like crazy. But I'm still not like, Danny, we should talk about this. And so watching the documentary, I left feeling like, okay. And I'm curious what you saw, Danny, but I noticed, and again, not diagnosing whatsoever, but it just felt like, all right, some moments felt like some inflated ego. Like it felt like an interesting childhood that maybe led to a lot of insecurities in some things that he admits that I think could potentially be very overcompensated for, or just like, maybe that fear around not being that person or going back to those insecurities is like super scary and painful to think
Hmm.
about. And I was definitely not using any specific one, because personality disorders come in a lovely mix of
Yeah.
flavors and there's different ones, but they all tend to be like semi similar. They're kind of like their own family of diagnoses. I would say there were definitely things that like felt personality disorder ish to me that he had some characteristics of. Again, in the show, like through media, through how he's choosing to present himself. But a lot of that felt like, yeah, that really inflated sense of ego, the lying, the just really seeming to be a lot in his like me box. And he's bringing the family with him, and he says that this is also for the family, but like seems very driven by self-motivation. And so there were just different things I noticed that felt at this point. I was like, okay, interesting guy. I get some flavors or some symptomologies that you might just find when you're looking at different personality disorders through this very specific lens.
Yeah. Yeah, the camera lens.
Yeah. what were you feeling? Or what did you, I don't know.
For me, actually, I picked up on a line pretty early on in the documentary where they said this was shortly after he was picked up by a marketing team, and that was that obviously they're trying to make this go viral. They want to monetize this person, and so they have to make it something watchable. They have to make it something entertaining. And there was a line in the documentary where they were pitching him to do certain things that he just said, well, no, I'm uncomfortable with this. So I do believe that there was a time where he was maybe a little bit more rooted in reality, or just a lot less willing to be as bombastic or as characteristic as he is today. He then, it seems like he took their advice and did like a video or two and then saw the result and was like, oh, okay, here I am. I get it now. I understand. And then I can only imagine that building, a brand off of acting that way. At what point does, like, what is that phrase where it's like art reflects reality or whatever that thing is? But like, at what point does the thing you do for work or the image you
Oh, like it
portray, yeah.
becomes.
And so to
Mm.
me, it's like if you do this enough, if you build a brand and if you have cameras in front of you long enough, at what point does it kind of just, does it start to become a little bit more normal for you to do this just every day throughout life? So that was where my head was kind of going with it. I don't, sure. The things that he's bringing up, can we find them in like a DSM? Can we kind of align them with like symptomology? I think we can. Should we? I don't know. And from what I saw, it's
Mm.
like whether you can diagnose them or not, is the behavior you're seeing worth taking seriously? And does it warrant an understanding, a good, healthy understanding, even if you don't end up putting a label to it? That's where my head kind of goes.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. And so Danny, to that point, then there's that later in the documentary, I think, from where you're saying he was like, I don't know, and then it goes
Hmm.
viral. You see later in the documentary, because I remember specifically, my husband was like, "Oh my God, like I just could never, like this could not be my life." Like he had filmed something, or the crew comes in, and he basically is like boasting, or it sounds like he's very proud of the fact of telling them that he just had to like record something 40
Yeah,
times
yeah.
or just something crazy to post. And I was like, wow, okay, like this is, and he's like, the vibe is like he's feeding off it. Like he is just, this is him. This is who he is now. This is his
Hmm.
job. And so I agree with you. They're definitely, and also like photos and it seems like he has changed a lot, which again is why I'm like, wow, the family's ability to like rock and roll with this and support him is like, that's
Yeah.
fascinating to me too. Just like with these huge shifts he seems to have made over the years. So then that's in the documentary. You're right. I think I see him feed more into that, or the lines do get blurred where it's like, who is, and again, see, like I'm forgetting his like his name is not really Liver King. He goes by Liver King. But it's like, where is he and where is Liver King and where is that line? And I bring up the like how I kind of felt like, ooh, like there's some, feelers for these kind of symptoms, because then to bring us up to speed, when I did finally be like, Danny, we should talk about this guy, or like, holy
Hmm.
crap, do you know who this guy is? Like, what is going on? When I watched one of the things he posted to his Instagram in the last few days, or like as he was getting arrested, was this like 14-minute video of him in a hotel room with his family. And that's where, and I did end the documentary being like, I have lots of feelings and I feel really bad for this guy. I think he is, and we'll get into the lying and but anyway, I end feeling like a lot of inflated ego. Oh, geez, okay, this guy's got a big personality. Like, this is a
Hmm.
lot. But when I watched the video last night, like, jaw dropped. I was just like, oh my God, like, I don't think he's okay. Like something feels very, very unsafe and like wrong, and it was just wild to me that in that he tells the person filming so many times, like the wife is asking to talk to him alone and he's like, keep filming, keep it filming. And it's just this, it starts to feel like delusion in a sense of like, what is reality and do you get what's happening? And like the, do you understand you've come here to see someone, to fight someone, quote unquote, who like has not apparently agreed to this or wants to do this, or like all these videos leading up start to feel very fantastical and mythical almost, and you're like, what is happening? And so I think it was after watching that And you hear people throw things around, like, or I would see in the comments so many people being like, oh, this is what mania looks like, this is manic. And it's like, at that point, again, if we're just looking at different types of behaviors, it's like, no, I see delusion, I see what maybe could be psychosis, I see someone that's been on social media and has blown up, and their job in their life is to film everything and be this character. What does that do to your psyche over time? Like you said, Danny, so you have that layer. Just there's so many, again, not a doctor, but who knows what extended use of steroids over time can lead
Sure.
to different type of symptoms. Like there's just so many layers here that I'm like, I don't know what is going on with this individual, but my heart just like went out to him and his whole family. And I was like, they don't seem to be super alarmed by it, or just that no one, the person filming continues to film. I'm like, is anyone at some point like, we need to shut this down and we just need to help the
Yeah.
person that this man is, not like the character and the he's getting arrested, this will go viral. Like that was just like super heartbreaking to me. And so that's where I think I bring up how watching the documentary, it felt like one thing, but then watching the video felt like a different kind of thing going on.
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of catch people up to what we're talking about in this moment. So he was arrested, and it also doesn't sound like this is the first time that he's been arrested.
No, they allude to the fact that this has happened
Yeah.
before.
So
But I don't know for
yeah,
what.
I was trying to do something. I was trying to do some research right now, and I couldn't find out for what. But so he apparently has put something on social media that is almost to the effect of like trying to coax Joe Rogan into a fight. From what I understand, they've never had an interaction before. In the documentary, you do see clips where Joe Rogan is obviously commenting on him, so they know of each other, but it doesn't seem like they've had any interaction. I don't know where like this idea of fighting him comes from. I'll mention that again in a second, because he does it to the people coming to arrest him, and I thought that was like pretty interesting. But why would people consider that, threatening? Why is this enough to kind of go into where he's at, find him, and then arrest him? Because we also have to look back to one of his tenets. And Ollie mentioned the 9 tenets at the top of the episode. One of his tenets is fight. And something that he does kind of make very explicit is when he was explaining the fight tenet, he does show people his guns. And so he believes that a part of what it means to be a man is to protect your family. So he says something along the lines of, if anybody comes on your property, uninvited, then you should be ready to kind of defend yourself. And he shows his gun collection. And he also has shown off, quite a few knives. I could have sworn it kind of looks like there's maybe a few like weapons in the hotel room when things are kind of happening. So I don't know the legitimacy of these claims, but when you lay all those things out, it kind of does force people to kind of do best practice and say, okay, what do we got to do? We have to step in and go do something. So that seems to be the basis why they believe they should arrest this person, is because he is showing means of harming people. And then this whole like weird fight thing. So as the video goes on, it is really odd. Like on one end, you have to capture this so that you can see that, I am innocent, blah, blah, blah. We can see examples of this with, unlawful like arrests or detainments that are just happening in just everyday life, right? And so like body cams and all that. So I can appreciate the desire to film. And then there's also this piece where it's like, how much of this is like entertainment? And I'm not saying that that he wants this to be filmed for entertainment. What I'm saying is how much of the desire to film actually gets pushed by media. And while media can't give a shit about your mental health, they do inadvertently kind of slip these ideas that we'll just film it, and it's like what we're seeing is someone who is struggling with something, and social media is benefiting from it. They're not taking his mental health seriously, and it's just really uncomfortable to watch. And so like that was really uncomfortable for me. There was music in the video for some reason, and then he posts it on his channel. So like when you put all that together, it just seems really, really weird. It seems very disconnected from reality. Like if this is a serious situation, I would want to take it seriously, and if it's just a sham, then I don't want to talk about this. So what happens in the video is apparently that officers are waiting outside to arrest him, and he's talking a lot, he's getting stuff ready, and ultimately he wants a couple minutes to use the bathroom. So the officers eventually come in, and then he says, well, give me like 12 minutes to go to the bathroom. He's trying to negotiate with them because they're saying, dude, we've been outside for like 20 minutes, so what the hell, like, let's go. He goes into this weird kind of like semantic banter of like, I'm talking to you like man to man, blah blah, you're in front of my family, you should
I've
be able to.
done 3 or
Yeah.
4
And
coffee
yeah,
enemas
and then what
today.
he says is, he says like, look at me, like look at my size. He like alludes to his body, his physique, and he says, I can take both of you guys. And it's like, that's a weird part. Like, who, like, why is that an important thing to say? Why is it important to, I wouldn't say that he's threatening people, but why is that something that needs to be voiced, that I can harm you, that I can fight you, that I can take you? It's like, if you really are taking this threat seriously, then there's some good evidence. Is why is this person threatening or saying things that could be seen as threatening to officers? That sounds like putting your foot in your mouth, you know? Like that's where I get like, what, okay, what am I actually watching? What's going on?
Well, and the whole time too, Danny, where it's like this idea of like protecting your family and this like idea of what masculinity means that they believe in, and that's like questionable or not. I guess I don't mean questionable. I mean, it's subjective. Like not everyone has the same view of what that means or what that looks like. He clearly, and just who he is, and in the past and documentary, like talks about what that means to him, and I get that. But like this whole time, I'm like, okay, but for someone who wants to protect their family or be this like masculine figure or head of household, like I just found it very interesting what in the moment, yeah, felt like it could have been combative, or it's like, what would protecting your family in that moment look like? But like, what did that mean to him in the moment? Was he able to differentiate that, like what was happening and the just the extent of it, how serious it was, like you said. And like, so that part was very interesting to me just watching the whole time of like, okay, it was really interesting. And then partway through, Danny, it's funny, well, not ironically funny, but I like opened up the
Comments, yeah.
comments because I think a part of what scares me most of the time is like, I don't know. I was nervous to hear what people, which is where I saw a lot of the manic comments that I was like, interesting. Some of the things he says, maybe. But like other stuff, I'm like, I don't think that's what mania really looks like. But I was actually like pleasantly surprised to see so many people be like, oh my gosh, like this poor person,
That's true.
or just like, hey, like what's going on, like, and it's I think a different reaction. And again, I don't like follow this guy. I do not follow him on any social media. I've just like heard of him over the years, but the backlash and the comments I've heard about him have been very harsh. They've been very, what I think a lot of people on social media get, and especially people being that outspoken, that kind of like on their own path, having a scandal like he had, lying about the taking steroids. I get it to a certain extent, but it was like really, I don't know if humbling is the right word. It was really kind of nice in a weird way to like see people being more gentle with him in the comments than I had ever really seen previously. And I was like, it was nice to see people absorb this maybe for more what it was, which was not just like, haha, how crazy, but like watching something for 14 minutes like you and I did, being like, what are we, what is happening? And just like getting more like concerned and confused as the video went
Yeah,
on.
like if this is serious, then it was nice to see people take it
Yeah.
seriously. And so
Yes.
I did pick up on that too. There obviously were a few just like, let's dogpile on this motherfucker. But there were
Yeah.
almost equal amount of comments where it's like, this is heartbreaking to watch. Like, this is really really, like, our hearts go out to the family. And it's like, yeah, if what you believe you're watching is a real thing, then I'm pleasantly surprised of the, I don't want to say good, but I'm pleasantly surprised of the reaction of that some people gave. And I think this kind of like moves us into why this matters.
Yeah, I was going to ask Danny, so why do you, I mean, we've obviously talked about our kind of like perceptions, what we know about him, different things we've seen, and like our reactions. But why does this matter to us? What are some reasons why we decided like, oh, this would be a good like current event topic for us to discuss on the
Cool.
podcast?
So, yeah, I have four kind of broad points that I really kind of want to hit as to why this would matter to Freudian slips and anybody kind of watching our podcast. Is obviously we've taken when we started this whole thing, we made an agreement that we said, hey, our job is to disseminate good information. We don't want to be, just pop psychology. If we're going to do anything, let's give it a good, honest try. And so my first point is kind of like 2 points rolled in one, but I do think that they should kind of like stand alone at the same time. So what you're watching is either a mental health issue, or there's also a reason to suggest that this might be a substance use issue. So if what we're watching is actually the result of poor mental health, then I really am like disappointed by how a lot of people are handling this issue. Is that they're taking it as entertainment. This almost like becomes a platform for people to project a lot of their insecurities, frustrations. It feels like it gives them permission to just be dicks, which I'll get into in a second. So, point number one, let's say that this is a mental health issue. There is some reason he did mention, again, once it came out that he was using steroids, that he did struggle with self-esteem and like body image issues. And so if what we're watching is someone who was just thrown into the spotlight, it doesn't mean that they were ready to handle it. It doesn't mean that they're expert, communicators or whatever. They had a product that people liked, and now all eyes are on him. And so if what we're seeing is someone struggling with their mental health, then I would really like people to kind of see it as that and treat it as that. And what I mean is that I hope that we can throw all of the bashing comments aside and give this family space so that they can sort out what actually needs to happen. Because if we continue to see this as a form of entertainment, if we continue to demand to see the next chapter, what happens, then it's like, it's just more cameras in this guy's face, less of an opportunity for him to get the help he needs. And it almost like imprisons his family, assuming that they don't really want to be doing this. It really just kind of forces them all to continue to keep this facade up. When he was talking about coming clean about the steroid use, his reasoning was that it's like the ends almost justify the means, is that the tenets are still good, even if what I'm doing personally, like there is like a separation there where, my message is still a positive one, is still one that I want people to have. But because of what I'm going through in my personal life and because of how I'm choosing to handle it, and now everything, like the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. And when we continue to like shove these people in a spotlight, I think it makes it very hard for them to get the help that they need. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And I think it's important though, Danny, to validate there are people that I think their anger, there are any feelings that come up related to this guy's lying, like all of that is justified. Like that doesn't mean just because someone is going through something or that their mental health might be struggling, it means like they can do no
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
or they can like say anything and it's like, well, be gentle with them, well, be nice. It's like no, like this man did build a business, and his sales and the way he pitched and marketed that business, he lied about. And I'm sure that offends a lot of people. People bought things from him thinking one thing that turned out to not be true. Like, I think that is all incredibly valid. I think it can be hard when you're in such like a public space to then, yeah, it's like it gives you almost permission to like bash this person so publicly that then I think, again, who knows what led to this shift in him. But it does seem like he was not like this forever. Like years and years ago, he was a very, very different person. And I think this is one part of the equation that who knows if it's a part of what led him to getting to this state. But I think the fact that he is clearly in this state now, I do think there's a difference between not agreeing with how he carried himself and what he did or what he stands for, completely valid, And if there is like some kind of substance abuse or mental health issue happening here, kind of bashing that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So that's like another big point that I had down, and that was like people feeling as if they've been scammed, that they do have a right to kind of voice that. Because think about the message that he was trying to preach, and then also think about the people he was trying to reach with that message. If you were to say that his, mental health issue was legitimate, that he did really struggle with body image issues and self-esteem, then it makes sense to assume that a big reason why he wanted to build his brand was to, inspire people who were going through something similar. And I think that's nice. But in doing this, you have a responsibility to those people, and you did fail those people. And I don't think that he recovered the most gracefully. Like it almost seems like he kind of like swept it under the rug a little bit. So I do understand that people feel they don't like that, right? They're already kind of down and out. They see someone who they consider now an idol or a role model. It is very inspiring. Their journeys to health were real. And when they find out that they were kind of following like a charlatan or someone who was not who they portrayed to be, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. And so my heart does go out to the people who did look up to this person and now like, fuck, like now obviously I've been like singing this guy's praises, and now I have to like go out and hear all the bullshit from everyone who's been, talking shit about him, and see, like, I knew it, ha ha ha, like your way of living is stupid. And it's like, so I can't imagine what those people are going through. And at the same time, I think what this really calls us to do is we should be doing a better job at, this is like a real rough draft way of saying it. I'm pretty sure if you give me a couple hours, a much nicer way of saying it.
I think this is good for
And
you. You don't always need a couple hours to mull these things over. I like this. This is a good stretch for you.
is that when you start to idolize a social media influencer, I think what that might kind of shine a light on is the quality of your actual family system, right? Why aren't I looking up to the people who are really around me? Why am I idolizing so much this person that I've never even met, to the point that when I find out that they are not who they seem to be, I consider that almost a personal attack, that they've wronged me. And so then they fire back in the comment sections and they retaliate, and they're ugly and they're nasty. And it's like, if you feel that you have been personally wronged by this person, I get it. It hurts to be scammed. But I also am wondering, like, damn, okay, who are you turning to kind of help you out with your stuff? Because that seems like pretty extreme. I don't know why you would idolize someone to that extent to begin with. That almost seems like uneducated. Like, I have decent self-esteem, I like myself, but I will say that I don't consider my body to be, centerfold worthy. When I see someone as sculpted as he, do I get interested in his product? Sure, I do. Does that inspire me to go to the gym? Yes, it does. But what it also inspires me to do is do a lot of fucking research in their products, right? And so, like, I'm never sold hook, line, and sinker with any influencer, because I'm also like, great, let me see the research in what you're doing. Let me do my best to kind of educate myself. And so it's like, if you were sold on this, and now if you feel personally attacked, I hope that when you recover from this, the lesson that you learn is not to distrust people, is not to like go further into your bubble, but is to learn how to collect information, is to learn how to think critically.
Okay, but I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, Danny, but I don't know if I want to say it's like, or I could see people saying that it's like a privileged standpoint to have, or it's like we're therapists. Like maybe we feel that way. Or I know you and I have talked about, like, in general, and I think based on stats, like people are like, again, subjective, but I'd say like easily swayed. Like we're much easier to persuade than we believe we are, which is backed by research. And we also, I think most people experience like FOMO and things to a level that you and I don't really. But I don't think that that's necessarily common, or it's like, marketing tactics. So, like all of these things are research. Like that's why they're able to get people. That's why. So I think it's easier to say, like, to not have, like, if you felt a certain way about you, or to like, oh, you need to look into these things. You need to, it's like, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I just think that is a lot harder for the general population to do than that might sound. And a part of that might also just be the, just not knowing that that's even like happening, like not even realizing like, oh shoot, if I had someone in my own family system or someone around me, then maybe I wouldn't think that like that couple online was perfect. If I had an idea of what like imperfect, but like a really good type of
Hmm.
love was, it's like, I don't think people even recognize that to a certain extent. And I wanted to bring up too, I think it's more of like an extreme thing in Gestalt therapy. And I know we've talked about this before, but I had a supervisor once that was like, it's just like a fun thing to think about sometimes, that they're like, what I guess a Gestalt therapist or that theory would say at like a really extreme level is like, anything you say to or about another person, your reaction to anyone doing anything is solely a reflection of your reaction to yourself. Or it's like all of that is just a mirror of how you feel about you or how you perceive yourself. And so I always found that really interesting because it's not that I always think it's 100% true, but I do find it like when I react to something that I'm like, whoa, like why, like that was kind of intense. It's like, it's I think a fun brain exercise for someone like me who's a therapist to be like, do I think that about me? Or like, am I that critical of me? Or just whatever it might be. I think it's interesting to flip it on you and be like, if that were true, then what does that mean? Then why did I just do that? And so I think even if people just had more reflection around like, okay, I've like actively gone out of my way to bully this person online or to like attack them for all this lying. And it's like, okay, fair, fair, fair. But it's like, what, maybe like how long has it been? And to what extent have you done that? And what repercussions has this person faced? And then it's like, okay, why am I still finding the need to give my energy to this? Like, what am I getting out of this? Like, I think it's that pause and reflection that I do think we as people need to do better. And not to say no one does that, but it's like, I think everyone can do better in that, whether it's in big ways or small ways. But I get what you're saying. And I think that's a really cool way to look at it that I didn't even think about, but you're so right. It's like when people grow up in certain households or don't have a big brother or don't have, whatever it is, they might look to outside references or things to learn like, oh, that's what that looks like, or that's what it means to be whatever, or to be that religion. Or when it's like, no, if you grew up in your own environment of it or saw your own version that you enjoyed or didn't enjoy, it's like you'd have an idea of what that means to you. And so I think this being, yeah, someone just feeling so like bamboozled by this and like, oh, like he lied. It's like, again, I think that's the interesting a part of why I find the lie so interesting is because someone even like myself who does not know anything about this world felt a little like, wait a minute. I'm no, like, it's like seeing a turtle and someone being like, that's an
Like,
alligator. And you're like, I don't know reptiles well, but I'm not gonna lie, I really think that's a
right.
turtle. And so I think, but that's a really good
Yeah,
point.
no. I appreciate, and I'm so thankful that I'm doing this with you because I'm clearly stumbling with this thought because
I think it's good that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important for me to tell you that I think it's good to do this back and forth though. Like I don't think that we can say things perfect the first time around, or it's one thing to prepare. Like you and me come in with like notes. We're not just like flying off the seat of our pants, but I think it's good that parts of it are like, wow, okay, yeah, I said that as a first draft. And that was a first, it's, or whatever. It's like figure it out as we go. Cause that's how normal conversation and how we come to our own ideas and opinions start. It's not just this like perfectly formulated because we're therapists. This is how we see it. And this is obviously what's going on. It's like, no, it's like I put my foot in my mouth. I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying in general, normal human Ollie, does some crazy shit. It takes me a minute to be like, wow, okay, next time we're going to approach that a little differently. And so, no, I love that we have such a great mix of like how we talk to each other and all the times that you're like, Ollie, I think, or sometimes you'll respond to something I say and I'm like, oh, that was such a nicer way. Or like, oh God, yeah, you're right. I was, whatever.
Yeah,
So
like
I love
the
that.
thing that like I want to, I guess, come back to and make sure that I do make a little bit more clear is, yeah, I don't want to be attacking people who be like, you got scammed. That's kind of like shame on you. Like, reflect. I love the we should be reflect. That is a practice that we definitely need to continue practicing. Yes, but what I did pick up from what you said, and I want to make sure that that's more clear. And what I was trying to kind of get to is that I think this should raise a little bit more awareness to the village and not just the villager. Like the villager got scammed, but it's like this really is a call to everyone that's saying, hey, this happens. Like people do look to these social media influencers and they idolize them. That says something about us, the people in their environment, and maybe we're not doing as good of a job. That it makes these people that much more charismatic. It makes these people that much more idealistic to them, and so like yeah, it's not just the person. I'm trying to get the attention. This is a village thing. Like we're if this is where we're
Yeah.
at, and if this is how people react to seeing their idol kind of fall, I think this speaks a lot to us, like just as a community, that we're kind of failing our villagers because it shouldn't feel like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Another point that I wanted to make is so the first one was like, if this is a mental health issue, let's treat it like a mental health issue and be a lot more respectful. On the same note, if this is a substance use issue, then please let's give space to treat it like a substance use issue and respond with respect. There were a few people like in the comments saying, I am a recovering addict and this to me seems very, indicative of someone who's coming off of drugs or who's doing this, who's doing that. In the documentary, he did say that, he has made drugs and he has taken drugs in the past. I don't know what his current use is. And I don't know if this is, even if it might look like someone strung out, even if it might look like someone who's under the influence, I don't know if it is. But if it is, then please give the family the space they need so that they can treat it that way. Because if we keep shoving cameras in this family's face, if we keep putting them like under this public scrutiny, they don't have as much freedom to then just detach, escape, and just get the help that they need. And I also feel bad for those who are struggling with whatever mental health issue it looks like he's struggling with, and whatever substance use issue it looks like he's struggling with. As a therapist, I'm very protective of our communities, of the communities that we serve. And so it's like this either is a mental health issue or it's not. And I think it's not only our job to validate people's mental health issues so that we can treat them, but it's also our job to protect those populations. And so if this is a mental health issue, if this is a substance use issue, then I don't want this person to be crucified. I don't want this person to be made a caricature, because then it just makes the rest of the people in those populations look worse and it makes it harder for
Yeah.
them to get help. And so that's where, like, when I'm seeing this and it's like, if this is a real issue, then damn, like, we need to be doing a better job at handling this. I don't want to be watching this thing. And if this isn't a mental health issue, then y'all need to stop claiming that it is, because it only hurts the people who are actually struggling with it.
Danny, that reminds me, like some of the things I saw in the comments, or just, in general, I think that's very commonplace is when people see just different mental health issues that are obviously, I think, present a little bit more intensely or scary, or there's like behavioral elements. Like, I think I'm so much more sensitive now than I used to be to when people are just like, oh, he's crazy. Like, oh, how crazy. And it's like, I don't know. Now I feel like I use that word when it comes to like bitchy Karens in the wild, If it's just like someone being like rude, I'm just like, oh, okay, crazy. Like in my head, it's like a rude thing now, or almost. But like when you see someone genuinely struggling or talking in a way that you're like, okay, like this doesn't make sense. I wouldn't want to be this person right now. I wouldn't want to be, in that person's community or family system, or like, oh my God, like this just feels like a lot for anyone around or anyone involved. Or it's like, living in the Bay Area, the quote unquote, like crazy homeless person. It's like that stuff just like breaks my heart to hear now. Cause I'm like, my gosh, like these people are, I get most people are not thinking incredibly deeply when they say it. I'm not being like, we have to analyze and think about everything 500 times before we say it. It's like, I get it. You're just like existing in the world and you're just talking. I get it. But it's hard as a therapist. And then when you see this stuff happen, or it's so in your face and like it's going viral. Like, again, I don't follow this guy. I don't know why I saw that video. It's just because like it's everywhere right now. And it's like, it's just sad to me, I think, to see how some people treat these kinds of topics or like verbiage that we use around
Yeah,
it.
100%. And on that note, like my last point as to why I think this is important for us to talk about is because of how people are treating it. So this is something we've kind of been dancing around for the past couple of minutes. But another thing that really kind of upsets me about seeing things like this unfold is that is how it seems to give people permission to just be dicks. And like here's my thing is if you are upset about someone who you find out is not who they claimed to be, and you're upset under like what hurts you is this principle of like integrity and honesty, and you are not the person, and we believe that you should be honest and caring and loving and fill in the fucking blank, but because you are not, now I get permission to shame you. And like this is such a weird thing. It's like you are either a loving person or a person who does loving things. You are either a good person or a person who does good things. And I think really striving for health, even when we're upset or when we've been wronged, it's important for us to voice and kind of advocate and stand up for those things, yes. But I don't think that you should betray yourself. And so, what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, that someone in these comments who are now shaming this guy, they say, well, it's important to be, because they originally bought into his message, and they say, yeah, it's important to really be like understanding, like, damn, this guy is a good guy, so let's be compassionate, right? But now that this lie has come out, I'm not only going to take back my compassion, right? I'm not only going to not extend my compassion, but I'm now also going to be shaming, right? You're going against who you claim to be. There's a very different way to handle this. Like if someone's upset you and you used to give them positive regard, then all I do is just say, okay, great, this relationship isn't going to work out. I'm no longer going to extend my regard to you. Good.
Mhm.
I hope everything's okay. I'm just going to go on my way. What I'm not going to do is then, go back on who I say I am and then be a dick towards you, right? Because I strive to be a good person, a kind person. And so I don't give myself permission to then be unkind. I don't have to be kind to you, but I don't give myself permission to be a dick. And so it's like that's really something that's like bugs me when I see all this stuff is like the self-righteousness that comes out, and it's just like, God, again, this
Yeah.
is either a real issue and you guys are handling it very poorly, or it's not a real issue and you guys are just you guys are taking this as an opportunity to just kind of allow yourself to be really kind of like ugly people.
Danny, that's so true. And then, but that, okay. So that made me think. I don't know if I ever told you that I do this with people or that I've like done this before. But with certain clients and especially in schools, we had all those little like stuffed animals where it's like you have all the little emotions, right? And so, sometimes if kids they were either breaking down or they're mad at their friend or whatever, we'd have them like, there's, like just a big plastic salad bowl. And we'd be like, okay, like, so you're feeling a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And we'd like stir it up in their salad bowl. And we'd be like, isn't that crazy? Like, look at all the things that we feel at one time. Or it's like, you'd have them both in a room together. And it's almost how for kids, how we do like mediation kind of. You would have, it's like you see your friend that like made you all mad. And then you see that he is like sad and embarrassed and nervous. And you're like, there's a lot happening in that salad bowl I didn't know about or I didn't think about. And so, it made me kind of think of how I don't think maybe as therapists, we're used to like, oh yeah, I can be super happy and like kind of like sad or like dreading something at the same time. And I think people just believe like, no, like these things should exist at least cohesively. Like if one emotion's bad, at least they're all flavors of bad. And it's like, no, like sometimes there's good and bad, or just like sometimes it's a weird combo, but we don't experience things in a bubble or like in a vacuum. And then it also, what you said though, made me think about values, where I know you and I utilize like core values so much in our work. And honestly, like a part, and this is, I think, more just like the theoretical therapist-y in me, that it makes me wonder though, like, okay, yeah, but if you are going to act that way, are you that type of
Yes.
person? Or do you just like to tell
That
yourself you're
that
that kind of
that's exactly
person?
what I'm hitting on.
And it's like, I just wonder if it's like, if you were to pick your values and it was the kind of thing we like analyzed in session over time, it's like, how many times are people like, oh yeah, like I'm a, you know, I don't know, pick anything. Like I'm flexible. It's like the top core value, the ability to be flexible. And then it's like, all right, well, we have now known each other for 5 months and you are very stubborn and we freak out when we need to be flexible on things. So then it makes me wonder, like, why are you so attached to the idea that you're flexible? And is it something that either do you actually want to be more flexible, or why do you want to think you are so bad? It's like an introvert being like, I'm totally extroverted. And it's like, no, you're getting hives, honey. And you want to be alone and read a book. I say that as an introvert myself. But you know, it's like, why do we want to push this so much? Are we okay? Like, why? Why can't we just be who we are? And so not to say that some people's values are like, I'm a dick and an asshole. And it's like, you know, if they say it, power to them. I appreciate that they see what's going on. But I like I go there too, where I'm like, I really wonder if you were to like analyze that with someone just for fun, you know, like if they'd understand that there is kind of a disconnect there. Or again, maybe they don't have like the introspectiveness enough to really see that that's what's going on. And I think to a certain extent, people that are super aggressive in these moments, or even like Liver King, just like what's happening to him in the moment, like I just don't know if he has the ability to be super introspective, or like to, if you were to even plop him away for a second, to get a true, if he truly understands how it looks or what's going on, or if he were to tell you his values and you were to see like certain actions or things and it's like, okay, if these aren't fully lining
Hmm.
up, I don't know if he'd be able to see that
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
right now.
Yeah.
So, but I love that point. I was like, oh, my head went like 500 directions. I'm like taking little notes. I'm like, oh, core
Yeah,
values.
it was exactly pulling from that. Being an existentialist, working with a lot of values, like that's what comes into my head is like when people act almost in a defense of some value, but they do it in a very opposite kind of way, and it's like something's not adding up. And I really hope that you can like take a couple minutes, sit back, see it, and then do better next time, because this story is still unfolding. I don't know if we're going to do an update on this one. This story is still unfolding, and so the thing that I would hate to see is just more of this guy's like unraveling show up, and then just see like just more onslaught coming. So, any closing thoughts
Yeah.
for you, my dear?
Oh, I think it's cool that we did one that was very different than our normal kind of route. I think it'll be fun to see what other kind of, I think Love Island might be another one we need to get into. We'll talk about that off air. But I think it was a fun one to talk about with like a trusted friend, with someone that's in a similar field as me. And I really think it's important to reiterate that like Danny and I come at this, you know, all from a place of love. We're not trying to do our jobs here, diagnose anyone. I think just with our work being so in line with the research and study of people, it's, you know, it makes sense that when things happen with people, we're probably curious and, you know, we're just like interested in what different dynamics are at play. And I hope it, you know, we're not trying to really educate a whole lot on this topic. We don't know a lot of what's going on, but I hope if people are interested or they're following it, maybe something we said helped them look at it from a slightly different perspective. And at the end of the day, can just take away how we feel about, you know, people going through their own struggles when that might be highly publicized, and just like out in the media, like how we view it and different things that we can take into account to maybe better help those people, and not, I don't want to use the word support, but not like encourage that to be like flaunted if someone's like truly struggling or like truly needs
No,
help
yeah, great,
in that
great. I
moment.
love that. Yeah. Same thing along the similar lines is either this is a real, you know, a real mental health issue. And if it is, then I hope that we were able to kind of offer you a little perspective for you to kind of look at this a little differently and maybe think before you kind of post or talk about this. And if this isn't a mental health issue and this is just, something for entertainment, then I really hope that we're also taking a minute to reflect on ourselves and don't let this give you permission to turn into like an ugly person. So that's what I got. Great talk. This was fun.
Good talk,
Okay.
Danny. Talk
All
next
right.
time. Chat with you
Bye bye.
soon. Bye.